The boom's not.
Oh,
The big square button below the 3 and 4.
okay. Okay.
Numbers started counting.
Say again?
Numbers started counting on the red numbers.
Yes, they did. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. This is Sex Nation. Dan Funk, take one.
So I guess I can say I'm Audrey now, right?
You're Audrey now?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. You're one of our heroes. Okay. Oh, I need to sit over here so you'll look at me. First question, Dan. Can you just speak generally to the prevalence of porn? I think there are still parents who don't realize that it's more normal to be watching porn probably than it is to not be watching porn now in a young generation. Who's watching porn? Does it infiltrate Christian circles? Your take on that?
So with the influx of social media and iPhones, and it seeming like everybody has access to be on the web all the time, and the freedom of porn to be able to be on those devices, when we have our 6-year-old grandchildren watching a phone, they can just as easily be watching porn as they can be watching Harry the Rabbit, you know. So I don't think as parents and grandparents that we pay enough attention to what our kids are doing and watching. And now with live action video games where people can talk to them online, there's just open doors for the enemy to get in and expose our kids to porn. As a male, when we see an image, we don't forget it. I know the very first time my brother showed me the centerfold in a Playboy when I was 6 years old. God's cleansed me from that, but I still know what that image is. Men do not forget images. And you know, my son driving down the road with my wife in the car as a 6 or 7-year-old, and there was a guy holding a very grotesque centerfold at the window of the car across for him to be able to see. So not only are our kids freely be able to experience porn, people push it on them also. And that's the problems that we have with schools and stuff right now also, is just the curriculum being pushed on kids so that their sensitivity is down, so that adults can speak to them about things that adults shouldn't be speaking to kids about, but we're giving them permission. And it just, it causes children to think that anybody can talk to them about that.
Absolutely. What do you think? Do you think there's even, I now am thinking, of course, of younger kids who don't know any better, but I am thinking too about teenagers, Gen Z, and how normalized it is to watch porn, to have sex with just anybody. Do you think there's still shame involved in?
I think, and this is only my opinion, I've asked several Gen Zs about it and have got some confirmation. I think Gen Zs compartmentalize things. So they have Jesus in this box, and they have church and worship in this box, and they have sex with their girlfriend in this box, and they have porn in this box, and they have moral issues that they're dealing with in another box. And when they're in that box, they're in that zone, none of those other things are in that zone with them. When they're in the zone of praise and worship at church, porn's not in there with them. The praise and worship's in there, and that's what they're doing. And they are, it seems like they're able to compartmentalize things that shame is not in that porn box. I think as they begin to surrender and blend those boxes so that Christ is coming into their whole life, shame comes in there. Because they realize they're doing things. They were doing fine on this prayer and praise thing when porn wasn't in that. But when those boxes all come together, I think that then shame does come into it. And shame's good and bad both. I think shame will cause people to I think it'll cause people to repent, because I think that brings guilt on them, and you know, there's good guilt, there's bad guilt, there's good shame, there's bad shame. You know, if shame is crippling you, it's bad shame. You know, but just the testimonies we hear from people, until they got to the point that they were disappointed in what they were doing, shameful of what they were doing, they didn't stop doing it. You know, so I think shame is a big issue in it.
Within the group of Gen Zers that you do speak with, I think probably a lot of them are in Christian circles, and maybe some of them aren't, but is watching porn even something that they care to keep to themselves as a secret? Is it private, or is it just so normal that it's like that's what everybody does?
I think it's normal that it's what a lot of people do, and even a lot of their Christian friends do. As we were at a men's retreat, the Watchman Warrior program that Yaku Boynes Ministries supports, we had a young man that we were speaking to, and he really wanted to be set free from porn. He knew that it was wrong. And him and a group of 5 other guys with him had a conversation about it the week before that retreat. And he was trying to defend the fact that we shouldn't be watching this anymore. He had hit a place where he wanted to be set free of it, but he was watching it because all of his friends were watching it. And he was letting them know that what they were doing was not satisfactory with relationship with Christ. And all of those guys were professing Christians. We all have sin in our life. The sin of watching porn is no different than the sin of looking at a lady wrong, or not paying your taxes right, or anything, any other sin, name it, you know, a smoking sin, a drug sin. They're all the same. It's a sin. So he had just got to the place where he wanted his group of friends to be different. And we were able to, I was able to pray with him and then encourage him to meet with his group of friends and tell him what he had done and that there was help, and sent him to yakuboynesministries.org's webpage to be able to find resources to get help.
Thank you. I've asked this question to several people. I know there's not a hard and fast stat, and some people haven't really been able to answer it even generally, but from what you've seen, like watching porn isn't just watching people who want to do this, who are just women who are making money and they want to do this. I think probably, come in, you okay?
Oh God, all right, sorry.
No, you're okay. Did we
Oh,
leave
you
the
guys
light
doing
off?
your own?
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
No,
That's
okay.
fine.
It's
I
okay.
apologize. Okay, I was just, he's on his way. Yaku has left the building.
Okay.
Yes.
Great.
Yep.
Okay, so,
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
We have 2 other people coming in.
awesome. And they'll phone you so you guys can go up there and lock
Yep.
the door or whatever.
Yep.
Let me know if you need me to go run to the door, whatever.
Thank
you
you.
Okay.
need to do.
Yeah. No, we're good. We know what time they're coming.
I'm
So.
landed now, so I'm back here now.
Okay.
Great.
Okay,
Thanks so much.
all right, cool.
Appreciate it.
Sorry about that.
No
Yep. No
worries.
problem.
I don't, I'll know next time. Okay, ready, Anthony, action?
Let me make sure we have it. I thought it was. So, yeah, it's on. I think there's still not an understanding that when you watch porn, you're not watching somebody who is actually in a respectable and even safe job. This is forced fraud or coercion. If you could speak to that, if you even know what the rate is of trafficking victims in porn.
Oh, I think, so as far as people watching porn without the realization that the person that is in those scenes are not doing that willingly, I think there's a percentage of that. Unfortunately, I think there are some people that are there doing that willingly. Besides guys are going to want to be there. You know, we've spoke to a couple guys that were, you know, stuck in porn for a while, at production of porn for a while, but there are some girls that go and do that because they make so much money doing it, and they have no respect for themselves, which is real scary. It's a hopelessness situation. It's very, very scary. But I think that the normal person watching porn, one is so self-centered in it. I don't think they even think about the fact that the girl involved in that is not doing that in her own will, that she's not wanting to be there. And that, I mean, we've definitely encountered the fact that there are pimps or guys. Pimp has such a weird world. That's a guy driving a Cadillac with several wheels and, you know, dice hanging from his mirror. But you know, it's so different now. But whoever is trafficking that person, because they're not making enough money trafficking, they know they can make a lot of money by putting them out in porn. And it's not something like, it used to be really hard to get a book published, and now it's a whole lot easier to get a book published. The same as getting a TV show published. It's so easy to throw something up on a YouTube or on these tube sites that they put themselves on and make a fortune selling that to people that want to watch that stuff. And so they can make a whole lot more doing that even than they can by taking the risk to be trafficking the girl. You know, they can be shooting a porn video in a hotel room and make thousands of dollars instead of having guys come into that hotel room where they have a chance of getting busted. So I don't think people really pay attention to the fact that that's a person that doesn't want to be participating in it. That they're watching it for self-pleasure. They're not watching it thinking about the person that's involved in it.
It's wonderful. I love that you hit on just how easy it is to make money from that, from the trafficker's perspective as well, or from whoever's producing the porn, women included. So last time we interviewed you, you said something that I loved. You spoke about the sexualization of the mass entertainment industry and how different it used to be. I mean, you used to, on TV, not even see a husband and wife sleeping in the same bed. Mm-hmm. If you could just paint a picture of what it was like then versus how it is now. Where I'm going is, the more we visually see that everything is about sex, the more that plays into relationships, and the lower the standard gets for how we treat each other as human beings.
Yeah. I think that we've just got to a really bad place in the world. Seems like it's a lot more in the United States than it is in other places. But sexualization of situations is just normal. You know, when I was growing up, we watched black and white TV. It tells you how old I am. And the husband and wife in every situation were dressed to the hilt in suits and ties and fancy dresses. And you know, if they did show a bedroom seat, they were in a full-blown nightgown and bathrobe and always in two separate beds, not even in a double bed. And you know, little at a time, a little chip here, a little chip there. You know, then they went to sleeping in the same bed, and then they went to more provocative clothing, and to the point now. Back then, in the early '60s, what they called porn is on regular TV now. But the problem is it's not even that it's on regular TV. It's just so accessible on the internet that you know, there's not TV shows necessarily with healthy couples that respect each other and honor each other. Wife honoring the husband honoring the wife, and both of them honoring their kids, and the kids honoring their parents. It's non-existent, and they have kept chipping away and chipping away and chipping away. That there just are no moral values anymore. I mean, you ask people to list moral values. They're only self. They're not a society. I don't think there's a society of moral values anymore. You know, just we were out of town yesterday, and we had two ladies traveling with us, and when we went into the building, I stopped to let them in front of me. The lady that was taking us around, that was a manager of the building, you know, I'd let her through first. That's just the way my mom raised me, and at different times that I've been out with my wife, I always open and close the car door for her. Just what I do. I've always have. And I remember a situation where we were out at a garden nursery, a floral nursery, and I'd went around to the car and opened the door and got her out, and we walked up to the front, and the guy in the greenhouse goes, "Y'all must have just got married, huh?" And I said, "No, we've been married for," it was 38 years at the time. I said, "No, we've been married at 38 years. And she said, and he just looked at me kind of with this puzzled look on his face. And he said, "How do you do that?" And I said, we just love and respect each other, you know, and we've lost that. We've lost that. And just respecting your fellow human being, you know, there's not, it's gone, and it's scary because but Christ. It's the only answer.
And if you're willing, I would love for you to share as much as you're comfortable about the overnight transformation that you saw in your life when you met him.
So I came to know Christ in December of 1983. I knew the name. I knew who to go to in times of trouble. You know, I was raised in a family that respected each other. My dad was a deacon in the church, but the only time I heard Jesus Christ is when he was screaming from his chair. And but when it came to a time of trouble, he was going into the hospital for heart surgery, and I just remember praying that night. You know, that surgery. I don't even know that I knew what I was doing. You know, I can remember that that night before I went to bed, I prayed. Now, as a mature Christian of a lot of years, I don't know, what did I do? I don't know that I don't know that I knew what I did, but he died the next day. So and a new boss had come to me and said that he was going to lead a Bible study, and he said there's no restrictions, no mandatory. You don't have to do it. You don't have to come. It's not going to affect your job, And asked me what did I think about Christ, and I said, well, the only time I really can remember was that I can remember praying before my dad went into surgery, and he died the next day. I said that's when I think you're Christ. And he said, no, it's so much more than that. He's a loving God. And then he took us through a Bible study, me and Crystal both. He discipled us. He discipled us like we need to disciple people around us that we don't do a good job doing. And literally, when we first started, we might have read one, it's a max 2 scriptures. And he taught us how to pray, and he taught us how to read the Bible, and then he introduced worship, and you know, and then instead of just him praying, he encouraged us to pray, and we did that, and but knew just by doing all the Bible study we had done, we went through each one of the Gospels, and then we went through Acts, and then we went through Romans. I don't know if we went any further than that before it ended, but somewhere in the middle of the Gospels, we knew that we were lacking something, you know, and it was a relationship with Christ. And me and Crystal both made the decision the same night to receive Jesus as our Savior, and then things just accelerated quick, you know, just on fire to talk to people about Jesus and just the things he had done in our life. You know, Crystal, we both came out of the alcohol and drug scene as teenagers and young 20s, and Crystal had kind of already had walked out of that. I mean, a little, not totally, but pretty much. And you know, but then when we got saved, we just quit. You know, we just quit doing drugs and quit drinking, and that was a major thing in our life. You know, so we replaced that with Christ. You know, and then got filled with the Holy Spirit, and you know, and you know, just had always had the love of kids. And you know, and received during prayer, received a lot of words about having kids, and then Crystal had to have a hysterectomy, and real tough time in our life. We'd been Christians for about 4.5 years, and you know, just felt like I had been taken out into the boat and kicked out of the boat, and then just 17 days later, found out about a baby that was up for adoption and hadn't been born yet. And so just the excitement of that, you know, and then so adopted my daughter, and then 2 years later after that, got another phone call about a girl that was pregnant wanting to adopt her baby, and adopted my son. So you know, just worked in orphanages in Mexico for about 10 years, worked in orphanages in Russia for about 10 years, and just have always had a heart for kids. And so, you know, as we talk about the Gen Zers, I just have a heart for them. I know what they need. They need love. You know, send the dude to me covered in tats and piercings. I know what he needs. He needs a hug. He needs love. And they won't tell you that because they don't want to, you know, expose themselves or whatever, you know, but that's what they need, you know, and as soon as you reach out and do that, my Twitter handle's Papa Dan, and have been called Papa Dan for a long time by a very large amount of you know, what were millennials when they were only in their 15s and 16s, and younger even. And I have that heart just to love on kids. So that's the tough part of what's happening with society, is because they're abusing kids, the helpless, you know, besides the abuse that's happening with elderly at the same time, but that's not even being talked about yet. But just the those that can't defend themselves are just expendables. I'm not sure. It's crazy just with what we're allowing society to do to our children and to other kids. I mean, I have grandkids. My 2 kids are old enough to have grandkids now, so I have grandkids, and we just pour Christ into them, you know. they're not at the place that they easily could be, but they're not at the place that they have the access to internet and stuff just because they're sheltered from that. Their parents know better. And it's just going to be a tough place for them to continue to grow up in. You know, so but Christ.
Our kids are being sold a lie.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Our kids are. They're being lied to, and I guess it's, you know, every generation's different. You know, my generation, we worked too much, and thought that things were what our kids needed, and now our kids. Not mine and not everybody's, but the millennials are focused more on themselves than they are the kids. You know, here, take this, and you know, sit over there while I watch porn. You know, they're allowing devices to raise their kids. And fortunately, it seems like the awareness is growing. That we slept for 15 to 20 years and didn't pay attention to what was going on. And there's good and there's bad. And bad they want your life and they want your kids' lives too, you know. And if we're not paying attention, and we haven't been, evil has come in, and it's time to turn that around, you know. This documentary, Sex Nation, you know. We've talked back and forth about the title of Sex Nation, but that's what we've become. We have become a nation that is driven by sex. Everything. I mean, it used to be so subtle and not in your face, but it's not nothing's hidden anymore. It used to be, and still is a little bit. You know, you got a 45-year-old guy online talking to a 13-year-old girl, and he pretends like he's 15. But they're getting so bold now. They just say, "I'm 45 and I like 13-year-olds." Man, how sick do you have to be? How sick do you have to be? Because we've had cases where we've had a 2-year-old that was being sexually abused. I don't know how the justification of Christ's love for his kids, when that person has to stand for accountability, is going to be ugly. Sometimes I think, how much worse could it have been during Sodom and Gomorrah than it is now? Really? It was worse then? He's a pretty, he walks in grace and mercy. Because the stuff that society is putting on the weight of the children is unacceptable.
You said it yourself. You just need love. All I need is love. We were made for love, but the enemy, Satan, has sold our kids
Yes.
a counterfeit. And he has called it love. He's called it sex. Sex is not being used for what it's designed for. In light of that, in light of what the term sex has become, you can say sex to describe intimacy, you can say sex to describe abuse.
I think you can. You can say sex to describe abuse or to describe intimacy. Me and my wife had a discussion about that, and it's just how you use words, because the enemy has taken and made sex an evil word. I make love with my wife. I don't have sex. But it's all terms. But that's how the enemy spins things, is he changes the terms of words. Genders. No, there's only two, but somehow the enemy has made people think that there's, 25 or whatever. But just that, because there is no definitive definitions to words anymore. They're whatever you want it to be, So because of that, what we've tried to teach our, for me, our grandkids, for others, their kids, what we've tried to teach them, the world has taken and spun that in a way so that now what used to be good is wrong,
Could you do this for me? That term, even in a conversation that you, Yaku, and I had, you said the sentence to Crystal. You said, I've never had sex with you.
No, absolutely.
Could you tell me, for the purpose of the documentary, that you shared that with her, that sentence, and why, or what you meant behind that?
Well, just like we've been talking about, the word sex has been just so perverted that, just like we were talking earlier, sex is in the Bible, but because sex has such a it can mean intimacy, but it can mean violence, and it can be abuse. Once again, the enemy has taken a word that has biblical in it and has perverted that so that the sexual abuse to our kids, if they hear sex in Sunday school class and then they hear that, it's that enemy trying to bring confusion to them understanding what a term is. So Crystal and I were speaking one day, and there was a teaching, talking about sex. I don't know if we were at a marriage conference or if we had been at one or heard somebody speaking about sex. And I've never had sex with you. I said, I've only made love to you, because to me, that's an intimate act of sex, because that's done out of the physical bonding of two become one, and they love each other, and that's how they create that union, through that physical intimacy, and we just chose, I just chose more than anything not to use that term because I that act is much more, has more reverence to me than just the term sex. You know, so.
Thank you. That's perfect. Last thing I wanted to ask you about, could you share the story of encountering Sissy, her name was, right? She was older, she's a trafficking victim, very traumatized, multiple personalities. In light of this idea that there's just this misconception people have of trafficking is only happening with young women, right?
So we do a lot in trying to help with victims that are caught into sex trafficking. We don't have a safe house, but just because of us working in the industry for so long, people will contact us if they have somebody that's just been in a situation, because there's only so many places you can reach out to, and everybody wants to do their own thing instead of help everybody like they should be doing, really. And so we had somebody contact us and said that they had a girl that was actually at a crisis pregnancy center that had gone through some sexual abuse and had reached out for help and just couldn't find any. And so we drove out to West Texas and went out there to meet this girl. A little different situation than anything we'd ever encountered. One is, it was a 51-year-old lady, and she had her dog with her, and she had a gun with her, which was, you just don't tend to see that on victims. I don't know if she had that because if she was planning on using it on the guy that had been abusing her, which unfortunately happened to be her husband, or what her mindset was in having that. But as we communicated with her and heard her story, at different times she had tried to escape. She had basically only in lingerie during the middle of winter, had grabbed a coat to run out the door, and he had ripped the coat off of her, and she went running down the street barefooted in just lingerie and in a snowstorm. And the police saw her and pulled her, went by and pulled over and talked to her, and they took her back home. So it's not, every situation is different. And so we got her out to a safe place and tried to get her help and get her into a safe house, into a shelter where she could receive the help that she needed. Every girl's mindset or every person's mindset is different, and she just had been abused so far. And she was a mom of 2 kids. They had been married for 25 years, lived in a very wealthy part of Dallas, Texas, and that marriage fell apart. She ended up out in West Texas and met this guy, and they got married. And pretty much right after they got married, he started to abuse her, and she put up with it. It was a somewhat of a drug situation. If you need drugs, you're going to do this, and but she just had been so controlled that the help we were trying to get her. Every place has rules. They have to. They have other girls there. They all have to. Everybody has to have rules. They have to, get up a certain time, go to bed at a certain time. But it's not to abuse them or cause them to feel like they're still being abused. It's just they have to have rules of the house to be able for the house to run smoothly. They have more than just that one person there. And and she just wasn't interested in following rules, and it's just a tough situation. I do feel sorry for her because if you are locked in a closet or you're abused and you're never allowed to do anything and you're only allowed to have the clothes that they'll let you wear and you only, you have to follow all their rules, that is abusive. When you get to a place where their rules are for love, you don't understand that situation. And, and then just all the drugs and all the abuse just caused a lot of personality issues and mental issues that just that we see a lot, but we're seeing that in society too. You see all the people down on the street. A lot of them are struggling with mental issues, just because we come through COVID and just again, life without Christ it's not pleasant, and so that was just one of the people that we have reached out to help, and we've had a couple that have kind of been a little bit along that same situation. They wanted everything, but they wanted it by their rules, and I understand that because they've had to live for so many years bound up by somebody else's rules that they have to get to a place that they want help, and there's a difference between just not wanting rules and wanting help, so. But there's a lot of good in the United States. There's a lot of good safe houses that really do a good job ministering to guys and girls both. There are a few safe houses for younger guys, but mostly women, and the Christ-centered houses do see success. There's not a lot of really good stories that people come out and they still have to deal with a lot of that the rest of their life, because it's been so, it has triggered their brain and been so abusive. But that's what we try to do the best, I think, is to find the places that are that we can recommend people to go to, that we know that they will receive the help they need. So.
That's great. Dan, thank you. I can cut unless there's anything that you just wanted to share. Knowing what we're doing, anything here.
I just think we're really at a place right now that we need to be sick and tired of being sick and tired. We need to stop allowing society to set all the rules. We have a rule book. It's the Bible, and our country was founded on it, and the morals and the biblical sound teachings that it was founded on established things to run the right way. And it's when we've gone away from those, when we've eliminated the Bible in the schools, and we've eliminated just moral teachings and turned them into corrupt teachings, where they're teaching kids in school things that kids never ought to be taught by anybody else, and in school is even worse, especially at the young ages. They're doing it at 5 and 6 and 7 years old. We just have to get back to just living by the Word of God, but I don't want that to sound so flippant. That because even that has got to a place where people say, "Oh, well, I go to church every week." Yeah, but that's on Sunday, and Monday through Saturday, you're living a lifestyle that nobody would understand that you go to church on Sundays. And our witness is to be Christ-like 24/7, and convict me for being a Christian, because we just have to get to a point that the enemy isn't running things, and that's where we are right now. The enemy and worldviews are running stuff instead of biblical worldviews. That's not anything that even exists anymore. And unfortunately, even in a lot of churches, so just the name doesn't mean that they're following the scriptures. So that's all I got.